Over to video number 2 now, so another update. So I've been learning how to make pom-poms because I got a pom-pom kit, like a craft kit. It took me a little while to get the hang of it after some trial and error, but now I can make pom-poms, so I've learned how to do that. They're easy once you know how to do it, it's just like I hadn't done them before. So I made a pom-pom kitty, I made 2 pom-pom kitties. For a reason I haven't got them to show you to camera, by the way, is it causes me quite a lot of anxiety to move things, and I've already put them in their place, and it causes a bit of anxiety to move things. So I hope you understand that. But just take my word for it; they are really good. I made a black one and a white one. I think the black one came out better than the white one. But you know, whenever you're making stuff, some are going to be better than others. That's just the way it is. They're both nice though. So doing that, obviously doing more knitting. I've got a few projects lined up. I want to make a tiny little teddy bear to put into a blanket I made out of embroidered fabric squares. That'll be so cute. I'll try and show you that when it's done. So I'll be doing that, and then also obviously adding to my cookbook collection. I always say I've got way too many cookbooks. I do not need to add any more cookbooks to my collection, and then I come across another one and I cannot resist it, particularly when it's only like £2, because it's basically like secondhand or on eBay or somewhere, and I'm like, oh yeah, and it's like right up my street. Like, I can't resist. So the one I got was I am really glad I got it done. I'm looking forward to it. Basically, I need things to look forward to right now because life is crap. You know, so I might actually do a review on it, possibly when I get it. I might do a review on it. It's an Enid Blyton cookbook. It's aimed at children, but that's good because the recipes are like simple and easy to follow and like visual and stuff. It's called Jolly Good Food, so it's inspired by the stories of Enid Blyton. I used to really like Enid Blyton stories when I was a kid. Well, Mallory Towers. I was into Mallory Towers, so it's a bit nostalgic. So yeah, I got that. It looks like it's got some good recipes in there. And the other cookbook I couldn't resist that I got is Miss Marmite Lovers. I think it's Miss Marmite Lovers Afternoon Tea Guide or something like that. I can't remember the exact title, but what drew me into it was that there were loads of recipes for sandwiches. Now I know, like, you probably think, well, you don't really need recipes for sandwiches. Yeah, I know technically you don't, but I quite like lists, and I also quite like having kind of I don't know, I like the whole kind of categorisation of things, like I know that this recipe book's got loads of sandwiches in there. That kind of just helps me when I want to put together afternoon tea. I can kind of consult it, I think, and it's like I just like having it all written down, like all the things I could do. And there is like a particular recipe for a Marmite sandwich, which tells you how to make Marmite sandwiches in different ways. There are apparently different ways to make them. It's not as simple as just putting Marmite on a bit of bread and butter it and put a bit of Marmite on. There's more to it than that. So I'm looking forward to this, because anything to do with afternoon tea, you know, I know I've got way too many books on afternoon tea, but I couldn't resist this one. It's only like a couple of pounds, so I just had to get it because it's right up my street. And when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I have to get that one. So I'm looking forward to that. So there are the sort of updates. Something else I wanted to talk to you, but I don't think I'm going to be able. This is something I might have to come back to in another video, possibly. And I want to know your thoughts on this, particularly those of you who are autistic. But obviously, if you aren't autistic and you've got thoughts on this, please do comment as well. What do you think about having an autistic counsellor or psychologist? The reason I ask is because for me personally, I cannot think of anything worse. And it's not just autistic counsellors or autistic psychologists that I wouldn't want. I also find it rather off-putting to have an autistic leader of a group that I'm in. Now, I raise this in this video just because I want to know whether or not other people watching this have similar experiences, because I think this is quite an interesting topic. But and I can't be the only one to feel rather squeamish about it. And I'm wondering whether it's not just specific to autism, but other conditions. So if you're watching this and you've got other conditions, I don't know, OCD and things like that, what do you think about, say, someone with the same condition as you, either running a group or providing you with therapy? Would you find that uncomfortable? Because to me personally, I do. I mean, I'd find it uncomfortable to have a therapist who also has OCD as well. And I think the reason for this is that I need clinical distance. So when I'm going to therapy, I like to feel that the person providing the therapy has some objectivity, that they're basically outside of, that they can see things with more distance, that they can see things more objectively, whereas if they have the same condition as me, there's a kind of, it kind of makes things feel very ambiguous, because on one hand it's supposed to be a professional relationship, right? So they're meant to be, it's meant to be like a professional relationship, whereas if they've got the same condition as me, it feels more like peer-to-peer. So it takes away that kind of sense of it being a professional relationship, which kind of makes me feel like I'm not quite sure. Boundaries are a bit weird, and I like clear boundaries. It also makes me feel uncomfortable because I feel a sense of inherent competitiveness, and maybe this comes from a low self-esteem issue, I don't know. I don't tend to think I've got that low self-esteem, really, but it might also be the fact that I compare myself to other autistic people. So if it's an autistic person providing me with therapy, I'm thinking, why can't I be in that job? And then it makes me feel bad about myself as an autistic person, because I like to see them as like autistic and kind of have achieved more than me, which kind of brings out these kind of feelings of resentment and kind of like feeling pissed off and stuff. Whereas obviously if they're not autistic, I don't have that, because I'm like, oh, they're neurotypical, you know, I'm not comparing myself to a neurotypical, there's no point, too big a gulf, you know. So that's the other reason. And it's the same, I'll bring this up actually because it's quite topical, because a facilitator at one of the groups I attend is sadly leaving, which is a shame, because it took me a little while to kind of warm to him, but I actually grew to like him, and I think he's quite a good facilitator. He's not autistic, but he has another disability, so I think that maybe means that he can kind of understand disability matters more. But obviously he has an objectivity because he's not autistic, and now he's stepping down. And I made a point, I said, I hope the next facilitator isn't autistic. Like, I can have any disability under the sun, I just hope they're not autistic. And obviously they can't discriminate against autistic people applying for the job. But although I did make a point, like, positive discrimination, like, I do sometimes discriminate when it's in the interest, like, you know, to ensure they have a certain number of, like, people of a certain sexual orientation or whatever. So in a way, maybe you could positively discriminate and say, because this is a disabled group, if the majority of the other, it depends what the other autistic people think, though, obviously, I might just be a lone voice, other people might not care, but, like, if other people also feel the same, then it could be like a disabled issue, like where we actually prefer not to have an autistic facilitator, in which case it would be like positive discrimination, because it would be like helping the disabled people in a group. But yeah, I suppose it's a difficult one, but like I would feel quite uncomfortable if a facilitator was autistic, again, because it feels too, like, that objectivity isn't there. And like when I'm against, like, for example, say in a group meeting when there's a lot of us are against the neurodiversity movement, not all of us, but there's a group of us in the group who are like really against the neurodiversity movement, and we're setting up a group called Disabled Autistics Matter to challenge some of the more hardcore elements of the neurodiversity movement. And obviously having a non-autistic facilitator, they're not personally involved because they're not autistic, but if you have like an autistic facilitator, they might be, say if they're personally invested in the neurodiversity movement, even though like a facilitator is supposed to be impartial, it's going to be very hard for them to be impartial, particularly if being autistic, you can also have a theory of mind difficulties and other things. It could result in like a toxic situation. So so do let me know what you think about like conflicts of interest and other things. Like, say if you have, I think that's the word, conflict of interest. If you have someone with the same condition as you, say either providing therapy or running a group that you attend. So thank you for watching.